Hello, today we'll be having a presentation on field preparation and transplanting of energy crops. The contents for this presentation are agri-produce for bioenergy, dedicated energy crops, short rotation coppicing, food versus fuel crops and their environmental impacts, the type of crops to be grown, steps involved in field preparation, crop calendar, optimum conditions for various plantations, transplanting, its uses and limitations. So first we have agri-produce for bioenergy. We can have three routes for bioenergy via agricultural produce. First we can have traditional crops such as cereals, which compose of mainly wheat and rice, oil crops, sugar beet and silage of maize for the purpose of generating bioenergy. Next we can have byproducts which are generated from cultivation of these crops such as manure and straw, which can also be used to create biofuels. The other type is dedicated energy crops such as miscanthus and short rotation coppicing. Dedicated energy crops are those crops which are low cost and have very low maintenance with a maturity period of around 1 to 3 years. They are classified on basis of physical characteristics. The physically larger crops are generally called woody crops, while those with lower size are known as herbaceous crops. An important characteristic of these crops is their carbon dioxide content, which is very detrimental in determining their fuel efficiency when converted into biofuel. Next we have short rotation coppicing. Short rotation coppicing is based on capacity of willow and poplar species to regenerate uh, when their stems are cut. In coppiced wood, which young trees are repeatedly cut down from their stems to near ground level, resulting in stool, and crop emerges from these stools. Pollarding is also a type of technique which is used in regrowing these crops. In pollarding, we have a stool which has a much higher height as compared to crops. Next, we have food versus fuel and their environmental impact. This discussion has the basis that growing excessive fuel crops may hinder the food security of, of humanity and may produce undesirable effects in the soil, but such arguments can be countered by the fact that if energy monocultures are prevented, su- such consequences can be stopped from happening. Also, sustainable crop rotations and mixed cultivation should be used while growing energy crops so that the soil's fertility and nutrient giving capacity is not affected. Next is the type of crops to be grown. We have miscanthus and willows. They both have their own disadvantages and advantages. While miscanthus yields an annual harvest, an elaborate system of care and maintenance needs to be put in place so that miscanthus may be grown. It is very sensitive and intensive as far as soil pH and electrical conductivity of soil is concerned. A major advantage of growing miscanthus is it is suitable for mixed cultivation and a variety of cropping patterns can be employed while producing miscanthus. Next is willows and poplar. Willows and poplar are hardy pioneer species. That means they can be grown on a variety of soil types, irrigation systems, and can even be grown on reclaimed lands. But a major disadvantage is they don't yield any harvest in the first year of their growth, so that may be economically unviable for the farmer. Also, mixed cultivation is not generally viable in growing willows and poplars. Next, we move to field preparation. Step 1 of the field preparation involves clearing the field, which may be done manually or by mechanized mode, and herbicide application. Herbicide application is very important in plantations so that larva of rustic moth and ghost moth, which is common in miscanthus plantations, may be prevented from growing. Such moths cause a very large damage to the plantation, and their impacts are often very huge for the producer. Also, in case of hardwood replantings, vegetation control is a major aspect of cultivation. Therefore, weed control becomes especially necessary while willow planting. The process of choosing a herbicide depends on the growth of weeds in the crop. If the weeds have not emerged, pre-emergent herbicides may be used. In case of an active weed growth, post-emergent herbicides are used. Also, various types of herbicides may be used, such as systemic or contact herbicides. Systemic herbicides translocate within plant systems and can have a very hazardous impact on soil and irrigation system, water of the area, but contact herbicides only affect the areas of plant in which they come in contact with, so they are generally more widely applied. Uh, Next we have selective and non-selective herbicides. Non-selective herbicides are those which kill a variety of plant uh, without discriminating useful and non-useful vegetation. Generally, non-selective herbicides are grown because they have a broad-based and wide area of application. Our best course of action while applying a herbicide is use of broad-spectrum herbicides like glyphosate or paraquat, and applying it in optimum dosage. Herbicides are applied via a variety of equipment such as boom-type sprayers, ATV sprayers, mounted sprayers, etc. The type of equipment used depends on planting site and landowner's budget. Generally, flat-type nozzles have proved more effective while applying herbicides to plantations as they reduce drift for herbicide applied. The next step of field preparation is plowing or tilling the land with proper implements. It is especially necessary because a reasonable soil volume for optimum root development and above ground growth is necessary. Also, if hard pans exist 18 inches or less below the crop surface, the growth of crop is severely diminished. Tillage not only improves the soil root contact but is also widely helpful in various other areas and operations which are applied after planting the crop and may help in better yield and cultivation and better yield and profit for the farmers. Next we have the implement to be used for tillage. Depending on requirements of the area, we can have moldwood plow, rotavators, or disc harrows. Moldwood plows are generally used for hard pans, rotavators are used for turning soils, and disc harrows are generally used after plowing to smooth out the plow furrow. Also, in case of plantation crops, we have zone tillage, which is done so that least soil disturbance may be there and effective rooting of the crop can take place. We now have a crop calendar. In the site assessment for a plantation is generally done in January to April period, while establishment plan is also done in the same period. Site improvement for the area is done in April to July periods. Such processes generally involve altering soil pH so that desired crop may be grown. Next we have in July clearing of vegetation and application of herbicide. Plowing and picking rocks is generally done in August, and picking rocks generally is done immediately after plowing or harrowing the field. In early September, the weed control on the field is assessed, and based on assessment, further weed control may be done. Next, we have optimum planting conditions for Miscanthus. Miscanthus giganteus is the most suitable species for biomass production. Minimum moisture level of 40% is required when planting rhizomes of the Miscanthus giganteus species. Rhizomes are used to propagate Miscanthus. They may be stored in cold storage for a period of 4 hours before they can be planted. Planting rate is 16,000 rhizomes per hectare with a planting distance of 0.8 meter into 0.8 meters. Optimum planting conditions for willow and poplar. Willow is generally planted as rods or cuttings in spring using specialist equipment at the density of 15,000 plants per hectare. In willow SRC plantation, um, replanting can be done up to 30 years and plants can reach a height of 7 to 8 meters before they can be harvested. The site should be reasonably flat and a slope of no more than 7% should be there. Poplar tends to develop fewer and thicker stems than willow and has consequently lower bark to wood ratio. Individual shoots can reach up to 8 meters and a planting density of 10 to 12,000 plants per hectare is generally done in case of willow plants. Next we have transplanting. Transplanting is the process of moving a plant from one location to another. It is generally in the form of starting a plant in an optimal condition with controlled environment such as greenhouse or a nursery bed, then replacing it in an outdoor growing location. Common market gardening and drug farming are generally synchronous with transplanting. Our next topic is why is it transplanting used and can it be done for every crop? Transplanting is generally done for the purpose of weed control in case of puddled or wet fields. It requires less seed but is also much more labor intensive as compared to direct seedings, and transplanted crops may take longer to grow as a result of transplantation shock that has been inflicted upon them while transportation, and generally not all plants can be transplanted as root systems of some plants are unable to bear transplanting shocks and therefore direct seeding may be necessary. Emerging technologies have signaled that direct seeding may be a viable option in the future. Even direct seeding is um, now encouraged for other crops such as rice, which were previously transplanted. Thank you. These were the contents of our presentation. If you have any questions, you may leave it below in the comment box. Thank you for listening.